Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is our morning update. All right, so we've been going crazy with the news as of late. We've had a lot of things going on. We've had a lot of different angles to cover. We've covered Patrick Kessler. We have covered the whole entire Prince Andrew saga. We have covered Ghislaine Maxwell. We have covered Trump lying about knowing Prince Andrew. You name it, we have covered it in the last few days. There is nothing that has slipped by us here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show. So we have had a lot going on, and we haven't really focused too much on our good buddy Les Wexner lately. Well, we're going to change that this morning. There's an article from the Columbus Monthly, and it's a pretty in-depth article, and it talks about Les Wexner and I guess his ties to the community in Columbus. So this is going to be a good read. This is going to be very informative, I'm guessing. This is good information for the story, for how we're following it here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show. What it does is just, again, it shows you that people like Les Wexner have been involved with Jeffrey Epstein from the very beginning, and yet they're facing no scrutiny. They're facing no punishment. They're facing no questions. But yet you have two prison guards who already have federal charges slapped on them? Do you not see the imbalance of power here? Do you not see the imbalance of justice? How dare they? How dare they arrest these two guards who were obviously negligent at their job, no doubt. I'm not saying they should escape punishment. Please don't misconstrue that. But what I am saying is that they should not be made the scapegoats. They're not going to be able to just pawn this off on these two guards this time and use them as their way out. We will not allow it this time. I will not allow it this time. Like I said, I will continue to follow this case till the very, very end, and I will not accept any of their malarkey this time around. I've accepted it too many times. I've never stood up when I should have. I didn't stand up for Edward Snowden. I haven't stood up for Julian Assange the way I should have. I didn't stand up for Bradley Manning the way I should have. So I got to tell you, folks, I feel like that this is the mountain that I'm choosing to die upon, because I refuse to be silent on this case. And guys like Les Wexner and Glenn Dubin and all of these other millionaires and billionaires and whatever else there's have been involved in this case. Your day's coming. Your day is definitely coming. And believe me when I tell you, there are a lot of things in the works right now, not just by me, but by other content creators that I've talked to. There are a lot of people with a lot of irons in the fires. And all of us together, especially if we collaborate, if we put our work together and everybody is, working the same goal, making sure we expose everything we possibly can about these people, then there's going to be nowhere for them to hide, because they can't rely on their lapdogs in the media to protect them anymore. All right, so let's dive into this article. But first, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That is BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. All right, let's see. The headline: the city is standing by its most powerful leader, but the saga is far from over. If you're looking for the quintessential Les Wexner experience, the Jefferson series might be it. Since 2014, it's featured renowned architects, best-selling authors, Oscar-nominated actresses, decorated military leaders, a former UN ambassador, and other prominent figures in the media and politics. The lecture series is a passion project for Wexner, who seems to love nothing more than reveling in its heady mix of big ideas, public service, deep thinking, and charity. On October 1st, the program launched its 7th season with a typically star-studded affair. Washington Post columnist, CNN host Fareed Zakaria, or however you say his stupid name, a Wexner favorite making his 4th Jefferson series appearance, moderated a panel discussion on China with two former U.S. Secretaries of State, Colin Powell and Madeleine Albright. Isn't that nice? Aren't all of these great politicians, aren't they such great people for hanging out with guys like Les Wexner? Wexner often offers introductory remarks for these lectures, and this one was no different. The 82-year-old L Brands founder refused to let the explosive Jeffrey Epstein scandal, a controversy unlike any other Wexner has faced, keep him from public appearances at one of his favorite Central Ohio events. Standing before the sold-out crowd of nearly 900 at the McCoy Center for the Arts, Wexner thanked everyone for supporting the series and introduced the speakers. After he returned to his seat, Zachariah acknowledged Wexner and his wife Abigail. "I first want to thank Les Wexner and everybody involved in putting this together," he said. "As many of you know, this whole idea and this civic engagement has been the brainchild of Les and Abigail, and I think it's just so important to have successful people in America give back to the community in this way." The crowd responded with hearty applause. And it's the same pattern we've seen over and over, right? These rich billionaires who are involved with Jeffrey Epstein, they have these cover type charity places where they use it as a showing of goodwill towards the community, when in reality they're really up to devious, disgusting things. The warm reaction revealed a lot about Columbus and its relationship with its most powerful citizen. Amid one of the darkest years of Wexner's public life, his hometown hasn't turned on him. After decades of good works, charity, and civic leadership, even a sordid saga of lies, extravagance, sexual assault, and impunity hasn't broken the cocoon of goodwill that surrounds him. Well, that's what millions and millions and billions of dollars of charity to build your image will do. It builds you a lot of goodwill within the community. People say, "Oh, he donated so much money to this community. There's no way he was involved in any of that." Come on! Les Wexner? He's such a good guy. Did you see how much money he gave to that so-and-so charity? Meanwhile, he's giving Epstein a plane. He's financing Epstein. He's letting Epstein do things to Maria Farmer on his New Albany property. He's also being involved with Virginia Roberts, according to her. So we have a man here, and like I always say, if we're going to believe Virginia Roberts about Prince Andrew, we're going to have to believe her about other things. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if it's some of your faves. But the saga is not done. This is the Columbus version of Les Wexner, the inspirational builder of one of the city's most important corporations, the self-made billionaire who gives hundreds of millions of dollars away to improve his hometown, the unselfish civic statesman who's a role model to other leaders, the visionary who built his own suburban Shangri-La in the rural flatlands east of Columbus. Now, this is the Epstein scandal version of Wexner, the careless rich guy who gave complete control of his fortune to a money manager with a sketchy history, the benefactor whose improper giving gave an undeserving protege status and power the blinkered mentor who described his now disgraced pal in a 2003 Vanity Fair article as very smart, a most loyal friend, and someone with excellent judgment and unusually high standards. That is what Les Wexner said about Jeffrey Epstein in a Vanity Fair article in 2003. Oh, how the worm has turned, right? And could it be that the worm has turned, or could it be that this is how Wexner truly felt about Epstein, and the only reason he bailed at all is because he's trying to fix his own self-image? I'll let you guys decide on that one. I wonder what you think about that one. In Columbus, it's hard to reconcile these two conflicting portraits. How can the same man be so savvy and so naive, so brilliant and so blind? How could Wexner, who's avoided scandal all his life and is married to a tireless advocate for children and abused women, associate himself with someone who turned out to be of such questionable character, someone who was arrested in early July on sex trafficking charges? Columbus has been forced to grapple with these questions since then, when Wexner emerged as a central figure in the saga of Epstein, who hanged himself in a New York City jail cell, allegedly, while facing charges he abused dozens of underage girls, some as young as 14. The topic has dominated conversations, filled social media feeds, spawned wild speculation. It's been an oh my god moment. Yeah, that's to say the least, right? Everybody, before the scandal started, thought that Les Wexner was this great guy. Everybody thought that he was doing so much for the world. Everybody thought that he cared about people. Well, look, his wife's an advocate of abused women and... Yeah, well, is that a cover story? I hate to be the one to have to say that, but was that a cover as well? Is all of this just an intricate plot to get access to young girls? Because let's be real, Les Wexner is certainly part of the mega group. Les Wexner is certainly part of the bankrolling operation. Look, in my opinion, there is no way Wexner did not know what was going on. There is no way that Wexner was not a part of it, okay? As the Epstein scandal blotted out the sun during the summer, Columbus leaders were disturbed. The concern was that we didn't want it to be a concern, says Lisa Courtrice, the CEO of United Way of Central Ohio. He's revered and a hero to Columbus. So we are sad that he has to go through this, and sad for his family. I think that's what I heard the most. He's so important to our history and our future. We just don't want it to impact our city. And listen how callous that statement was. Not one word about the victims. Not one word about the people that suffered at his hands. All they care about is their image. We don't want it to affect the city. Oh, there's no way Wexner could do this. So this lady here, her name is Lisa Courtrice, however you want to say it. She is an enabler, folks. Another enabler of Jeffrey Epstein and Les Wexner. Let's protect our money. We have to protect the golden cow, right? We have to make sure the money doesn't dry up. Indeed, a big public reckoning is unlikely. Columbus Monthly contacted more than 24 local leaders in politics, business, the nonprofit sector, and the civic realm, and almost all declined to talk about Wexner on the record or didn't respond to messages. Wexner also declined to be interviewed for this story, and those who did talk were almost uniformly supportive of Wexner. So there you go. It's still happening right now. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. They're still enabling and they're still protecting Jeffrey Epstein. Wexner needs to be completely put on the rack. The city of Columbus should be ashamed with themselves. Absolutely, positively ashamed with themselves. The business leaders of Columbus, everybody protecting this man. Look, you need to have a harder eye. All right, you can't just accept that this man's a good man because he's done so much financially for your community or for your city. Al Capone did a lot for the city as well. All right? El Patrone did a lot for his city as well. Doesn't make you a good person. You have to go a long way down the city's power structure to find someone willing to criticize Wexner's connections to Epstein on the record. Columbus as a whole is not okay with this, says Liliana Rivera Bayman, an underdog candidate for Columbus City Council whose status as a sexual assault survivor inspired her in part to speak out. All right, so let's get that name correct. Liliana Rivera Bayman, Baiman. Maybe we should give her a little bit of support down there, huh? Maybe throw her a few bucks. She is concerned that the most powerful person in the city was associated with a sexual predator, wants to know more about their financial and personal relationship, and wants to hold Wexner accountable if wrongdoing is discovered. Mostly, she wants to have a loud public conversation. We are with you, Liliana. Go get him. To be sure, she's not Wexner's only public critic. There are plenty of dark takes on Wexner, especially outside of Columbus and in the cynical, conspiracy-fueled world of social media. It's a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You know what was a conspiracy, folks? And I'm going to tell you what was a conspiracy. All right? The biggest conspiracy theory ever in the history of America was the whole entire Russian hoax that we just lived through. Had the whole Mueller report, everything comes out, none of that occurred. Not one single person went to jail over Russia. Anybody who went to jail, it was over process crimes. So, before we start talking about conspiracy theorists, we have to label everybody in the media that then as well, right? Because they not only lied, they gaslit you the whole entire time. Don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me for letting you know. All I did was offer you that red pill. You happened to eat it. You're here. And I'm sorry, folks, but them's the facts. To be sure. But the Columbus establishment is a different story. For instance, all of Rivera Bayman's incumbent opponents, council members Elizabeth Brown, Emmanuel Remy, Shayla Favor, and Rob Dorans, declined to comment for this article. I think people are afraid of bringing it up, Rivera Bayman says. Yeah, of course, especially if you're trying to get into politics and this guy is such a well-ensconced fixture on the scene. He's the kingmaker. We all know Wexner's making kings. Look, he made Jeffrey Epstein, right? He made Jeffrey Epstein. He gave him all that money. He was his only client. Gave him the plane. Gave him the mansion. Come on, man. Come on. Meanwhile, Wexner's backers praise him for his integrity and accept his explanations. that he knew nothing about Epstein's sex crimes, that he's embarrassed and ashamed by his association with the disgraced financier, that he regrets ever having crossed his path. His early trust in Epstein might baffle some of these supporters, but they also sympathize with his plight. They say he's an optimist, trusting by nature, and that can make him an easy mark for a master swindler like Epstein. Wexner deserves our support, they say, not our scorn. Yeah? Well, you're in the wrong place for that. All you're getting on this podcast is scorn, Wexner. You crypt keeper looking mother effer. You are a sick dude. You have all of these dudes wound around your finger, all because you have big, deep pockets. Well, guess what? Those pockets are drying up. How's L brand stock looking there, Mr. Wexner? How was your Victoria's Secret little model show, Mr. Wexner? Les Wexner is so well respected, says Kurt Steiner, the veteran political operative and former Ohio State Senior Vice President of Communications. Something like this will raise eyebrows, but it's not going to change the level of respect people have for him. Les Wexner is going to be given the benefit of the doubt. Oh, okay, why? Because he donated a bunch of money? Because he bankrolled you? You goon, you thug, you enabler. Those of us who know him the best know of his unwavering ethics, his moral compass, his unselfish commitment to Columbus, says Alex Fisher, the CEO of the Columbus Partnership, the city's most powerful civic organization, which is chaired by Wexner. He's been one of the people in my life who's been the standard of community engagement, and I don't think anything in this summer's events have changed that. Aw, is that right, Alex Fisher? Well, if you have a daughter, maybe you could send her over to be babysat by his good friend, Ghislaine. What do you think about that? Maybe you send him over. If Jeffrey was still around, you send your daughter over to go give Jeffrey a massage, since they're such good effing people. Boy, I'm fired up right now. I am getting fired up reading this article. These people covering for this sick bastard. A divorce from Wexner is improbable, almost unimaginable. How could the city cut ties with someone who is essentially the father of modern Columbus? Someone whose last name is plastered on buildings and institutions all over town, from COSI to Ohio State to Nationwide Children's Hospital. It doesn't shock me that he's involved with Ohio State University either. Those people are a bunch of friggin' ugh. Sorry, I'm a Penn State fan. That's a little jab that I shouldn't have taken on you guys, but Les Wexner, really? You guys are defending Les Wexner? Come on, man. That would be like when Penn State had the Sandusky situation for people to defend him. Les and Abigail both have earned an extraordinary reservoir of goodwill that is going to outweigh the negative fallout that he's had to endure so far, says Mike Curtin, the former state representative and ex-associate publisher of the Columbus Dispatch. Speaking in early September, Curtin says that he hasn't seen any revelations so far pointing to Wexner's culpability in Epstein's misdeeds. I believe we've seen the worst of it, Curtin says. I hope we've seen the worst of it. Yeah, no, you haven't seen the worst of it. You could hope you've seen the worst of it, but you have not, all right? It's going to be a slap. You ever see the slap fights that they have, like on YouTube or whatever? The guy puts the powder on his hand and they slap each other until somebody wins. Well, that's what's going to happen collectively. When all of this really comes out, collectively, everyone's going to put powder on their hand and slap the shit out of Wexner. Yet the Epstein saga plays on. Books are in the works, as is a Netflix docuseries. A movie seems inevitable, and the courts aren't through with Epstein despite his death. Federal prosecutors in New York are continuing to investigate, focusing on Epstein's former associates, and several Epstein victims are suing his estate, valued at more than $500 million. The media continues to focus on Wexner, including a major Washington Post story published in early October that tied him and Abigail more directly to a previously alleged 1996 Epstein sexual assault in New Albany. And Wexner could end up a major figure in the Epstein-related clash of legal titans that is playing out in both the courts and the media, a dispute between famed attorneys David Boies and Alan Dershowitz. These idiots should not even be using this platform for their stupid fight. Like I've said, I've been on record here with David Boies and Alan Dershowitz and all of these high-profile lawyers. A lot of times they do more harm than good, in my opinion. Wexner's protective Columbus cocoon might need some reinforcements. Since Epstein's arrest in early July, Wexner has been the focus of a media feeding frenzy. Let's not get carried away. A media feeding frenzy? No, Andrew is the focus of a feeding frenzy. Wexner has had a few articles written about him. The Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Bloomberg, and more have descended on Columbus with reporters inundating Wexner's friends, former work associates, and acquaintances with phone calls. The attention, the most brutal coverage of Wexner's life, made worse by the cultural backlash that was already roiling Victoria's Secret, L-Brand's signature enterprise, peaked on July 25th when the Times and the Journal published deep dives on Wexner and Epstein. One Wexner friend declined to speak on the record to Columbus Monthly, fearing the public comments might lead to even more calls from reporters. I don't have time for that, the friend says. Oh, no, you don't have time for any of that, right? You don't have time for girls who have been raped. You don't have time for girls who have been trafficked. I have to go count my money like Scrooge McDuck. Stupid, sick-ass people. Thanks to all the reporting, a striking portrait of Epstein has emerged. Wexner's man in the shadows, his international money man of mystery, as New York Magazine dubbed him. For his only publicly known client, Epstein was more than just a financial advisor. He oversaw the construction of Wexner's 316-foot super yacht Limitless. He joined the board of Wexner's Foundation, the tycoon's charitable arm, replacing Wexner's mother, Bella, who died in 2001. With the help of Wexner, Epstein became a jet-setter in his own right. He bought a corporate plane from the Limited, then the name of L-Brands, as well as a 7-floor home in New York, the largest private residence in Manhattan, from Wexner. Epstein even purchased a 10,000-square-foot home originally intended for Wexner's friend, New Albany County Chairman Jack Kessler, for $3.5 million on the grounds that surround Wexner's own mansion in New Albany. Oh, so they're not really close, though. They don't really have that. Look, the ties are circumstantial at best, folks, all right? He took a picture with them one time, or, what? No. All right? You're the godfather. You were pulling the strings, Wexner. You're not fooling me. Following months of media scrutiny, here's a field guide to what the Columbus Monthly and other outlets have learned about Epstein, Wexner, and their professional and personal relationship, as well as what questions remain unanswered. The origins. Wexner appears to have met Epstein in the mid-1980s. A source says Robert Meester, a former AON insurance executive and a friend of Wexner, introduced Wexner to Epstein, who also received endorsements from Bear Stearns CEO Jimmy Kane and his predecessor, Alan Ace Greenberg. Mr. Epstein represented that he had various well-known and respected individuals both as his financial clients and in his inner circle. Wexner wrote an August 8th statement posted on the website of the Wexner Foundation. Based on positive reports from several friends and on my initial dealings with him, I believed I could trust him. Still, plenty of people questioned Wexner's judgment from the start. Epstein, who owned his own wealth management firm after working as a Bear Stearns trader, was a college dropout and a former math teacher at a Manhattan private school with a skimpy resume despite his high-profile references. It's a weird relationship, an anonymous Wall Streeter told New York Magazine in 2002. It's just not normal for someone of such enormous wealth to all of a sudden give his money to some guy most people have never even heard of. And I have my own opinions on that. I happen to think that all has to do with the mega group. I believe they facilitated all of this. They facilitated the relationship between Wexner and Epstein, and I believe that they facilitated a lot of the things that occurred with those two. They acted obviously as Epstein's handler, and I believe Wexner was a crucial part of the mega group. So that's certainly the assertion I'm working on right now, and until somebody proves me differently. Calling Bob Murawski. Columbus hasn't heard a lot from Wexner's former top lieutenant of late, but he was a frequent interview during the aftermath of Epstein's arrest. Murawski didn't return Columbus Monthly's calls, but he did speak to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and others, delivering some of the most biting comments about Epstein and Wexner. I tried to find out how did he get from a high school math teacher to a private investment advisor, the former chief financial officer and vice chairman told the Times. There was nothing there. Well, I could tell you how. He was put there. He was placed there by his handlers, by his buddies. It's obvious to anyone who's paying attention. Epstein's connections apparently intrigued Wexner. Murawski said his boss told him that Epstein could introduce him to important people. Murawski spent 15 years with the Limited before resigning in 1987. Les is an insecure guy with a big ego. He had a lot of money but craved respect, Murawski told the Wall Street Journal. They played off each other's needs. Power of attorney. Many observers have zeroed in on Wexner's decision to grant Epstein power of attorney in 1991, allowing him to borrow money, write checks, buy real estate, and more on his behalf. A power of attorney agreement is common in that context, Wexner wrote in his August 8th statement, pointing out that it gave him more time to focus on his business and charity efforts. Indeed, another wealthy Central Ohio resident agrees, saying such arrangements are common for high net worth individuals with complicated finances who need help managing their assets. I've done that before, the Central Ohio resident says, comparing it to a professional athlete who hires a personal manager to allow him to focus on his sport. Yeah, okay, sure. So, out of everybody he could pick, he picked a high school math dropout, Jeffrey Epstein, to manage his billions of dollars of money. Yeah, okay, sure. Close to home. One of the earliest reports of a sexual assault committed by Epstein occurred in 1996 in his New Albany home, which he sold for $8 million in 1998. In a court affidavit and an interview with the New York Times, Maria Farmer, an artist who worked for Epstein, says he and his friend Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of the late British press baron Robert Maxwell, assaulted her in a bedroom in the home, twisting her nipples to the point of bruising. Fearing she was going to be raped, Farmer fled the room, the Times reported. Epstein had invited Farmer to spend the summer in the home while she worked on 2 large-scale paintings commissioned for the movie As Good as It Gets, starring Jack Nicholson. Farmer told the Washington Post she holds Wexner responsible for what happened to me. She pointed to Wexner's close ties to Epstein, as well as the responsibility of a security team to monitor the property, located on the grounds of the Wexner estate about a half-mile away from his mansion. Farmer also said Wexner's security officers held her against her will for about 12 hours following the assault until her father arrived from Kentucky to pick her up. So this guy has a small army on his retreat, a small army of security, and they wouldn't let this girl leave. For 12 hours, they held her against her will after she was assaulted by these sick bastards. And Wexner has nothing to answer for? These people were in his employ, right? Well, he has something to answer for. A Wexner spokesman told the Post the Wexners were unaware of the alleged attack. Before the recent news coverage of Miss Farmer, Mr. and Miss Wexner had no knowledge of her, never met her, never spoke with her, and never spoke with Mr. Epstein or anyone else about her. Boy, where have we heard that before? Isn't that the same stupid denial we keep hearing from all of these people? Oh, I don't know him, I don't know her. From Donald Trump on down. Everybody doesn't know anybody in this case, huh? Pretty convenient. Epstein and Victoria's Secret. Then there's Alicia Arden, a California model who says Epstein assaulted her in a Santa Monica hotel room. Posing as a talent scout for Victoria's Secret, Epstein invited Arden to his hotel for an audition. When she arrived, he grabbed her and tried to undress her, saying he wanted to manhandle her, Arden said in an interview with the New York Times. What's more, the Times reported Wexner was told in the mid-90s that Epstein was attempting to sell himself as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret models, according to 2 executives at the time. The L Brands board has hired a law firm to investigate Epstein's role with the company, though a spokeswoman has said she believes he has never been employed by the company or served as an authorized representative. No, not at all. He just had power of attorney over the guy's money, so he could pretty much do whatever he wanted, with whatever he wanted. To act like he had no role in the Victoria's Secret stuff is just more lies, it's more BS, and just more reasons for us not to believe anything these sick, twisted people say. Mystery money. In January 2008, Epstein transferred $47 million from his company and his own foundation to one created about a month earlier by Abigail Wexner. The transfer occurred a few months after the Wexners severed ties with Epstein following his indictment on sex charges in Florida in September 2007. This payment raised plenty of eyebrows when the Columbus Dispatch reported it in July. Why would Abigail accept money from the accused pedophile she and her husband just fired? The answer came in August when Les revealed that in the fall of 2007, he discovered that Epstein had taken vast sums of money from me and my family. The $47 million donation was actually a partial repayment for the misappropriated funds, Wexner said in his August 8th statement. All of that money, every dollar, was originally Wexner family money, Wexner wrote. I'm embarrassed that, like so many others, I was deceived by Mr. Epstein. I know now that my trust in him was grossly misplaced. And it just so happens that Jeffrey Epstein kills himself in jail, so that he can't bring any of this stuff to light. Yeah, so the $47 million was stolen from you, but you never went to the authorities about it? You just expect us to believe that someone ganked $47 million from you and that it was no big deal? You were like, bah, no worries, we'll catch it on the rebound. Yeah, right. We know you rich people. We know you misers. We know that you count every single nickel and coin multiple times per day. You aren't being disconnected from a single cent without you knowing. $47 million stolen from you and you don't call the FBI. What are you? Give me a break. Ohio State has also been drawn into the controversy. Following Epstein's July 2019 arrest, the university discovered two gifts connected to the disgraced financier. $1,000 to the Wexner Center of the Arts Membership Fund in 1990 and $2.5 million in May of 2007 to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Wow. The Athletic Center gift was done in conjunction with a matching contribution from the Leslie H. Wexner Charitable Fund. The money fulfilled a pledge that led the naming of the Les Wexner Football Complex, a surprise 70th birthday gift to Les from Abigail in 2007. Oh boy, this is great. This is lovely, isn't it? Boy, what a pillar of the community. See what money will do for you folks? You could be as sick as you want, as disgusting and depraved as you want. If you got a few bucks to spread around, a few hundies to slip into people's pockets, a few bundles of dough to slide into an envelope, do whatever you want. You could do whatever you want. Meanwhile, me and you are busy paying our taxes. Me and you are busy using the crosswalk. Me and you are busy following all the traffic laws. And while these people can do whatever the hell they want. In early October, Les and Abigail Wexner have been great community leaders and supporters of Ohio State for many years, Ohio State President Michael Drake said in a statement provided to Columbus Monthly. They've done so much to uplift both the university and the city of Columbus, and we sincerely appreciate their ongoing service and support. I continue to rely on Les and Abigail as valued partners and friends. So that's nice. You're relying on a guy who's accused of not only enabling but taking part in the sexual exploitation of young girls. Ohio State. The Ohio State. Gah! What's the next chapter for Wexner in the Epstein saga? Perhaps a court date with one of the country's most famous and outspoken attorneys. Alan Dershowitz, the retired Harvard law professor, was one of the first celebrities to be accused of participating in Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Now, the one-time member of the O.J. Simpson legal dream team is waging a scorched earth campaign in the courts and in the media to clear his name, and Wexner may be the key to his defense. It's a convoluted story, but the gist of Dershowitz's argument is that he wasn't the real target of his accuser, Virginia Roberts. He was merely a stalking horse, and Roberts and her attorney, David Boies, a fellow legal luminary who represented Al Gore during the 2000 Florida recount, were really after Wexner and his riches. For about 4 years, Dershowitz has made this extortion claim in court filings and in media interviews. But interest has increased in Roberts since Roberts filed a defamation lawsuit against Dershowitz in April, and the FBI arrested Epstein 3 months later. Dershowitz tells Columbus Monthly his legal team intends to feature Wexner if a trial moves forward, which could occur in about a year. He is one of the most critical witnesses for my trial, Dershowitz says. Other witnesses could include Abigail and John Zeiger, the Wexner family Columbus attorney. At issue is a series of phone calls and a face-to-face meeting that occurred in 2015 between Roberts' lawyers and Zeiger. Dershowitz says he spoke to Abigail and Zeiger and both used the word shakedown to describe Boies' tactics prior to the face-to-face meeting that occurred at the attorney's New York law offices in July 2015. Wait a minute, hold on, color me shocked. Lawyers were attempting to shake someone down for money? Also, if you guys didn't know, the sky is blue and water is wet. The court proceedings could prove unpleasant for Wexner. Dershowitz and his legal team want to know what was discussed during the phone calls in the meeting in hopes they will discover something that will undermine the claims of Roberts, potentially dragging Wexner through the mud. I hate to be doing this, says Dershowitz, who attended Wexner's 59th birthday party in 1996 at the invitation of Epstein and taught Wexner's son, Harry, at Harvard. I like Leslie Wexner. He's done an enormous amount of good to the world, to the Jewish community, for Israel, for Harvard, but the truth has to come out. So here's what I said the last few days, guys. I'm starting to think that Dershowitz is going to roll on these guys. Dershowitz will do whatever he can to stay out of jail. We've seen that. We've seen the way he comes out swinging. We've seen what he's done with Virginia Roberts, trying to discredit her. And if you think that he won't throw this guy under the bus, if it concludes with him being free and his name being cleared, you have another thing coming. Boyes didn't respond to a request for comment, but in a court affidavit, he denied the extortion claim, adding that no settlement demand was made or even discussed with Wexner or his attorney. A source close to Wexner also says there was no extortion. So this is once this Dershowitz case starts, this Dershowitz and Roberts case gets cracking off, we're going to learn a lot more, folks, so hang on to your hats. As the Epstein story engulfed Wexner, some Columbus leaders worried the city might overreact. What if protests occur? What if names are removed from buildings? What if the city turns its back on its most influential family? If that were to happen, the thinking goes the Wexners might give up on the city. That would be the most horrible thing that would ever happen to Columbus, says a business leader. So you'd rather have a guy who's involved in sexually assaulting girls, trafficking girls, enabling the man who is the most prolific sex offender in the history of the United States. You'd rather have that guy associated with your city? Way to go, Columbus. What a bunch of pillars of the community in Columbus, right? What a bunch of people that stand tall when times are tough. What a joke. If you live in Columbus, you got to check these people, folks. Are these people serious? That scenario hasn't occurred, and civic leaders say Wexner remains just as engaged as ever. In early September, he joined 75 community leaders, 60 CEOs, plus public officials such as Columbus Mayor Andy Ginther and Franklin County Commissioner Marilyn Brown for the Columbus Partnership's annual 2-day retreat in Boston. Hosted by the Harvard Kennedy School, who Epstein donated money to, the retreat featured big-picture planning, small group discussions, and high-profile guest speakers, including biographer Walter Isaacson and New York Times Beijing bureau chief Jane Pearls. Who cares? Who cares about any of those people? The conversations were spirited, enthusiastic, and challenging, and 4 attendees say Wexner was in the middle of it, as always, listening intently, asking questions, learning alongside his fellow CEOs. Wexner didn't speak about Epstein, nor did anyone ask him to. His work in the community, his work in his company, and the work of his family, those are his loves, says a partnership member, adding with a laugh, he doesn't golf. Who cares? You know what he does? He does diddle little girls, allegedly. He does enable sex traffickers. He is so hip deep in this, in my opinion, that all of these people that are enabling him still are going to look so bad when everything truly comes out. And we're taking names. We're going to remember these people, right? We're going to remember Columbus in this story, folks. We're going to remember how Columbus enabled these pedophiles. We're going to remember that. The city of Columbus, the leaders of Columbus, we're going to remember that. As the retreat closed, Wexner gave his traditional benediction. He thanked all for their commitment and participation, stressing that Columbus owes the success of the past decade to leaders committed to being in the room. Yeah, well, how many times were you in the room when your buddy Jeffrey Epstein was doing his thing? Hard questions need to be asked, and hard questions need to be answered. Will Wexner remain in the room, or more specifically at the head of the table? Those 4 attendees are in agreement. He's not going anywhere. Despite his advancing age, despite the troubles at Victoria's Secret, despite Epstein. It's the same less, one says. All right, so I have to ask you folks, honestly, why would anyone consider even going to Columbus at this point? I wouldn't spend 1 single cent in that city. All of these leaders who are still protecting this man are absolutely and positively responsible for this continuing to occur. We can't have it. We cannot let people like this be protected by civic leaders, by politicians, by anybody. Wexner is just like the rest of us, folks. He's no different than the royal family. He's no different than anybody else. He puts his pants on the same way we do in the morning. So these questions need to be asked, and he needs to answer these questions. And Columbus, I'm ashamed of y'all. Are you guys for real, the city of Columbus? Protecting this man this way? You guys are going to the mattresses with this guy? This is what you're going to... In the world of cancel culture, you guys aren't canceling anything. It's very odd to see. It's very odd to see what's going on in Columbus after reading that article. It's very disturbing to me. All right? Anyone who spends just a little bit of time researching this case knows that Wexner is up to his neck in it. Right? And more is going to come out. And it's going to be on Columbus. They're going to have to do the backtracking. Wait and see. When it all comes out, you wait and see how these people backtrack and how they act like they didn't care about Wexner. Oh, he was never a big part of our community. And that's exactly what will happen, because at the end of the day, it's a feeding frenzy with these people. One shark gets hurt, they all go in for the kill, because all they care about is self-preservation, these people in power, folks. That is all they care about, from politicians to the media to you name it. That's all they care about. These girls being assaulted means nothing to them. They do not care. You know why? Because it's just an everyday thing for them in their life. It's nothing new for them. They assault people on a daily basis. They're endless wars, there are chemicals in the food, etc., etc. These people are extremely evil, they're extremely devious, and they all need to be exposed. That's what we're doing here. We are turning the predators into the prey on a daily basis. All right, everybody. I will be back later on for the daily drop, and I hope everybody has an incredible day. If you would like to reach me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That is BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. If you would like to support the show, you can find the GoFundMe link in the description box.